Human felt an alien girl's pulse respond to his, but what she explained later was pure healing. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, back to our main character. Jack Henderson, a decorated Special Forces commander, had seen his fair share of battles. Yet, nothing could have prepared him for the strange, otherworldly situation he now found himself in. The planet he had crash-landed on was unlike anything he'd ever encountered. Alien landscapes stretched before him, with towering, jagged mountains and vast, alien forests filled with creatures that Jack had no name for. After the crash, he was separated from his team, stranded with little more than his combat suit and a few supplies. But as he trudged through the dense, foggy terrain, his mind was focused on survival, not the strange, pulsing energy that seemed to hum beneath his feet. The air was thick with an unfamiliar fragrance, and the sky was painted with colors Jack couldn't identify, unlike any Earth sunset he had ever witnessed. It was in this surreal environment that he first saw her. Leora. She stood in a clearing, her presence striking, almost ethereal. Her skin was a soft shade of azure, and her silver hair shimmered in the strange glow of the planet's twin suns. Her eyes, though, were the most captivating, bright, almost luminescent, with a depth Jack hadn't seen in any human. She appeared to be waiting for something, or perhaps, for someone. Jack's instinct was to reach for his rifle, but he hesitated. There was something in her gaze, an intelligence, a knowing, that stopped him in his tracks. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady, but his heart raced. Leora smiled, though it wasn't the kind of smile that Jack had come to expect from those he encountered. There was no malice in it, no hostility, just a serene understanding. "I am Leora," she replied, her voice soft but with an undercurrent of power. "And you are in need of help." Jack was taken aback. How could she know that? But before he could speak, she took a step closer, and for the first time, he felt it. The subtle, rhythmic pulse that seemed to align with his own. His heart skipped a beat, a strange synchronization that made his breath hitch. It wasn't just a physical sensation, it was deeper, almost spiritual. He blinked, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this real? Was it just the planet messing with his mind? "You can feel it, can't you?" Leora's voice cut through his confusion. The pulse. Jack nodded slowly, his hand instinctively touching his chest, feeling the pounding of his own heart. "Yeah, I felt it," he said, still unsure of what it meant. "But how?" "It's the bond between us," she explained. "My species, we share a unique connection with those we encounter. When our hearts synchronize, it is a form of healing, a way to transfer strength and vitality." Her eyes met his, intense yet comforting. "What you feel is not just my pulse responding to yours. It's a healing force, one that can help you recover, but also one that can heal deeper wounds, wounds you don't even know you carry." Jack felt his heartbeat quicken, not from fear, but from something else. Something primal, something beyond his understanding. He had faced enemies, monsters, and countless battles, but nothing in his military training had prepared him for this. Leora stepped even closer, and Jack could feel the heat radiating from her. It wasn't just the warmth of her skin, it was something else. A magnetic pull that made his own heartbeat match the rhythm of hers. And in that moment, Jack realized that this wasn't just about survival. This was something else entirely. Something that would change everything. "You have much to learn, human," she said softly, a hint of something more, something personal, lingering in her tone. Jack swallowed hard, still processing what she had said. There was so much he didn't understand, so much he needed to know. But in that instant, as he stood there with Leora, feeling the strange pulse between them, Jack had a feeling that everything he thought he knew was about to be turned upside down. And perhaps, just perhaps, this bond was the key to his survival on this alien world. As Jack stood there, his heart still racing from the strange connection he felt with Leora, he struggled to process what she had just told him. His military training, which had prepared him for everything from hostile combat situations to surviving on barren planets, hadn't accounted for this. This was unlike anything he had ever experienced. Leora had mentioned healing, but what did that mean? Was it just some alien power, or was it something more profound? His mind buzzed with questions as he tried to make sense of it all. Leora, sensing his confusion, tilted her head slightly, a gentle smile playing at the corners of her lips. You must be wondering what this bond means for you. Human, she said, her voice soft but firm, as if she could read his every thought. It is more than just an exchange of energy. It is a way for us to understand each other, to bridge the gap between species. Jack nodded slowly, his brow furrowing. But how does it work? Why do I feel this connection? Why does my heart match yours? Leora took a step closer, her gaze never leaving his, and Jack couldn't help but feel drawn to her, as if some invisible force was pulling him in. It is our way of connecting with other species, she explained. My people have the ability to harmonize with others, to share our energy and healing. But it is not just physical. It is emotional, too. She paused for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. You have pain, Jack. Pain you may not even realize. This pulse between us, it helps you heal. It helps you understand your own inner struggles. Jack stared at her, his mind racing. He had never been one to open up about his past or his struggles. He had always kept them buried deep inside, behind the walls he had built around himself. But now, with Leora standing so close, with the pulse between them pulsing in time with his own heartbeat, he felt an odd sense of vulnerability. What do you mean, pain? He asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. Leora's expression softened, and for a brief moment, Jack could see a hint of sadness in her eyes. We all carry burdens, Jack. Even you. The pain of loss, of loneliness, of battle, it all leaves marks on us, even if we don't show it. This connection, it allows us to understand those wounds, too. Heal them, even if it is just a little at a time. Jack felt a lump form in his throat as the weight of her words settled in. He had spent years burying his pain, pushing it down, convincing himself that it didn't matter. But now, with Leora standing before him, with her soft, comforting presence, he felt it all bubbling to the surface. He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. And what happens now? He asked, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. Leora looked at him with those piercing eyes, her gaze filled with understanding. Now we continue. We learn from each other. We heal. She reached out, her hand hovering just a few inches from his chest. I cannot heal all your pain, Jack. But together, we can begin to understand it. Jack hesitated for a moment, then slowly nodded, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over him. The pulse between them, still resonating with his own heartbeat, felt comforting now, not invasive. It felt like a bond, one that he could trust. He let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, and with a quiet determination, he stepped forward, closing the gap between them. All right, he said, his voice filled with a new resolve. Let's begin. Leora smiled softly, and for the first time since landing on this strange planet, Jack felt a sense of hope. It wasn't just about surviving anymore. There was something more at stake now, something worth fighting for. As Jack and Leora stood in the clearing, the weight of the moment settled over them. Jack had never been one to trust easily, but there was something about Leora's presence that made him feel as if, for the first time in years, he wasn't alone. The strange bond between them pulsed, both comforting and foreign, as if their very hearts were sinking in a way he couldn't explain. He glanced at her, his mind still trying to piece together what she had said. You really think you can heal me? With just this connection? Jack's voice was a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. Leora's eyes softened, her expression one of understanding. It's not just about physical healing, Jack, she replied. The pulse is more than that. It allows us to understand the pain that lingers beneath the surface. It helps to connect us, not just as two beings, but as two souls. Healing comes from within, and sometimes we need another to help us find the way. Jack's gaze dropped to the ground, his fingers flexing slightly, as if testing the weight of her words. He had carried the weight of war, of loss, for so long. But could he really let go of all that? Could this alien woman, with her strange power, help him do what he had never allowed himself to do? Let go? He wasn't sure. But as Leora stood before him, her energy radiating warmth and calm, he began to wonder if it was possible. The stillness between them lingered for a moment before Leora spoke again. Come, she said softly. Let me show you more. Jack followed her as she led him deeper into the alien forest. The air was thick with an unfamiliar fragrance, the ground beneath their feet soft with moss that seemed to glow faintly. The further they ventured, the more Jack began to feel that strange pulse, as if it were guiding him, pulling him forward. They reached a small clearing surrounded by ancient trees, their trunks twisted and massive, their leaves shimmering in the dim light. Leora turned to face him, her expression serious yet kind. "This is where we connect. Not just with each other, but with the planet itself," she said. "The energy here is pure. It is where my people come to find balance, to heal. And now, it can help you too." Jack felt a wave of uncertainty wash over him. He had been trained to trust his instincts, to trust in what he knew, not in some foreign, intangible energy. Yet, as he stood there, something about the place felt right. It was as if the very air was alive, humming with the same rhythm that now seemed to match his heartbeat. He took a cautious step forward, then another, until he stood in the center of the clearing, surrounded by the ancient trees. Leora's gaze never left him as she stepped forward, her hand extending toward him. "Close your eyes, Jack. Trust in the connection." Jack hesitated for a moment before doing as she asked, feeling the cool breeze brush against his face, the soft whispers of the leaves surrounding him. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to breathe, to be still. The pulse within him began to resonate with the pulse of the planet. He could feel it now, an almost imperceptible hum, a rhythm that seemed to belong to the very world around him. And with it came a sense of peace, a quiet understanding that perhaps healing wasn't about fixing what was broken, but about learning to live with it, to embrace it. Leora's voice broke the stillness once more. "You are not alone, Jack. You never have been. We are all connected, more than we realize. Our pain, our strength, our fears, they are all part of the same pulse." Jack opened his eyes, meeting hers. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel the weight of the past crushing him. He didn't feel the burden of his scars, physical or emotional. For the first time, he felt free. A soft smile crossed his lips as he looked at Leora. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with a gratitude he didn't know he had. Leora's eyes softened, and she nodded, her gaze filled with understanding. "You have taken the first step, Jack. The rest will come in time. Together, we can heal." Jack didn't know what the future held, but for the first time since he had crash-landed on this strange world, he felt as though he had a place in it. A place beside Leora. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was enough. The days following Jack's first real connection with Leora passed in a strange, peaceful rhythm. It was as though the bond between them had shifted something fundamental in him, unlocking a door that had been sealed for far too long. He had always kept his emotions locked away, burying them beneath layers of duty, but now, each morning felt different. Each breath felt more alive, more connected. Leora, with her calm demeanor and quiet wisdom, was proving to be an unexpected source of strength. They spent their time together exploring the alien landscape, learning from one another, and gradually, Jack began to understand the true meaning of what Leora had shown him. She had helped him face his inner struggles, but now it was his turn to understand her. One evening, as the two of them sat by a small fire in the clearing, Jack noticed something different in Leora's eyes. There was a hint of sadness, an unspoken story she had yet to share. He had grown accustomed to her calm, to her strength, but tonight, there was something vulnerable about her. He decided to ask her about it. "Leora," Jack began, his voice softer than usual. "You've helped me so much, but I feel like there's something you're holding back. You've shown me your world, your ways, but I've never really asked about yours." Leora remained silent for a moment, her gaze fixed on the dancing flames. The soft crackling of the fire was the only sound between them. Jack waited patiently, giving her the space she needed. Finally, she spoke, her voice low but steady. "I have not always been like this, Jack," she said, her words tinged with sorrow. "My people, we are not all born with this connection. The bond one share with you, it is rare, even among my kind. I've been alone for much of my life, struggling to understand my purpose. Until I met you, I did not know what it was to truly heal, to connect in such a way." Jack felt a pang of sympathy for her. He had known loneliness, too, though in a different form. He had seen the horrors of war, the loss of comrades, and the constant struggle for survival. But what Leora spoke of was a different kind of isolation, one of the soul. I can't imagine what that must have been like, Jack said, his voice sincere. But you're not alone anymore. I'm here. Leora's gaze shifted to meet his, her eyes filled with gratitude. I know, she replied softly. And that means more to me than you realize. But there is something else I must tell you. Something that has been weighing on my heart. Jack leaned in slightly, his curiosity piqued. What is it? Leora hesitated, then slowly began to explain. My people, we are not as you think. We are not all healers, not all connected to the pulse in the way I am. Many of us live our lives in silence, disconnected from the world around us. It is not a curse, but a consequence of our history. My ancestors once ruled with power and fear, and as time passed, we lost something. We lost the ability to connect, to heal. Jack listened intently, trying to understand. And you've been trying to bring that back? Leora nodded, her eyes distant. Yes. I have spent my life searching for answers, for a way to restore what was lost. But in doing so, I isolated myself. I distanced myself from others, thinking that I had to do it alone. Jack reached out, his hand resting gently on hers. You don't have to do it alone anymore, Leora. You've already shown me what true healing is. Maybe it's my turn to help you. Leora smiled softly, the weight in her eyes lifting just a little. Thank you, Jack. I never thought I would find someone who understood. Someone who could help me heal, as I have helped you. The fire flickered between them, its warm glow casting shadows on their faces. Jack felt a sense of peace settle in his chest, as though they had both taken a step towards something new, something beautiful. Together, they would heal. Together, they would face whatever came next. As the days continued to pass, Jack and Leora's bond grew stronger. They spent more time together, learning from each other, their connection deepening with every shared moment. Jack had never felt more at peace, nor had he ever imagined that he could heal in this way. The alien world that had once seemed so hostile was now a place of discovery, a place where he could finally let go of the past and embrace the present. One afternoon, while walking through the forest with Leora, Jack noticed something strange. The pulse they had shared, that deep, rhythmic connection, seemed to be growing stronger. He felt it within himself, an energy, a warmth, that filled his chest and spread through his body. It wasn't just physical anymore. It was something deeper, more profound. Leora stopped walking and turned to face him, her expression thoughtful. Do you feel it, Jack? She asked, her voice low, as if the very air between them had changed. Jack nodded, his hand instinctively going to his chest. Yeah, it's stronger than before. What is this, Leora? Why do I feel this way? Leora smiled, a look of quiet understanding in her eyes. It is the pulse, Jack. But it is more than just a connection between us. It is a part of the healing process. As we share this bond, it opens us up, allows us to feel more deeply, to heal not just physically, but emotionally. The pulse is amplifying now because we are both beginning to understand it and each other. Jack absorbed her words, trying to make sense of what was happening to him. The sensation was like a wave of energy washing over him, not just soothing the physical scars of his past, but reaching into the depths of his mind and soul, mending parts of him he had long since forgotten. So this is healing? He asked, his voice filled with wonder. Yes, Leora said softly. But it is not something that can be forced, Jack. Healing takes time. It takes trust. And it takes understanding. You are learning to trust not just me, but yourself. And that is where true healing begins. Jack looked at her, his eyes searching hers for answers, for some sign that he was truly on the path to recovery. I've always thought I had to do it alone, that I had to bury everything, push through the pain on my own. But now I don't know. I don't know what to feel anymore. Leora reached out, placing a hand on his arm. It's okay to not have all the answers, Jack. It's okay to feel lost. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. You have me, and you have this world, and together, we will find our way. Jack felt a lump form in his throat. He had never allowed himself to be vulnerable, not to anyone. But with Leora, it was different. With her, he didn't feel weak for feeling pain. Instead, he felt understood. He felt like he could finally begin to heal. Thank you, Leora, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Leora smiled, her eyes gentle. There is no need to thank me, Jack. This is not just about me helping you. It is about us helping each other. We are not so different, you and I. Both of us have been broken in our own ways. But together, we can learn to heal. Together, we can become whole. For the first time in a long time, Jack felt a sense of hope. A hope he hadn't realized he had been missing. As they stood there in the quiet of the alien forest, the pulse between them grew stronger, and Jack knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. There was still much to discover, still much to heal, but with Leora by his side, he knew. He wasn't alone anymore. And that made all the difference. The days passed by in a gentle flow, like the steady hum of the alien world around them. Jack had grown accustomed to the strange new environment, to the pulse that echoed between him and Leora, but there was still so much he didn't understand. He had thought he came to this planet for survival, but now, it felt like he was here for something deeper, something more personal. He wasn't sure how much longer they would stay on this world, but the idea of leaving felt strange now. The bond they had forged felt like a thread weaving through both their hearts, too important to sever. As he walked beside Leora, the landscape stretching endlessly before them, Jack felt a sense of calm that was unlike anything he had ever experienced. He had spent so many years in constant turmoil, fighting wars, losing friends, drowning in pain. But now, with Leora, there was peace. They spoke less these days, but each shared moment seemed to speak louder than words. They had settled into a rhythm, a quiet understanding that needed no explanation. One evening, as the twin moons began to rise, casting a silvery glow over the alien forest, Leora stopped walking. Jack followed her gaze upward, noticing the constellations that adorned the sky. They were so different from Earth's stars, unfamiliar yet mesmerizing. Leora turned to him, her eyes glowing in the soft light. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, her voice soft and reflective, "if we are just fragments of something greater? Pieces of a puzzle we can't yet see?" Jack paused, considering her words. It was a question that struck a chord deep within him. In his years of service, he had often wondered about the bigger picture, about why things happened the way they did. But that was always just a passing thought, a fleeting curiosity. Now, with Leora, the question felt more real, more urgent. "I don't know," Jack said, his voice thoughtful. "I've never really had the time to think about it. Life always seemed like a series of obstacles to overcome, one after the other. But now, it feels like I'm seeing things differently." Leora smiled, a soft, knowing smile that seemed to echo the sentiment of the universe itself. "That is the beginning of understanding, Jack," she said gently. "When we stop running from the questions, when we stop fearing the unknown, we begin to see the truth." Jack looked at her, his heart full of emotions he couldn't quite name. He had learned so much from her already, about trust, about connection, and about the importance of simply being present. "I never thought I would find peace," he said quietly. "But here, with you, I think I might be beginning to understand what that means." Leora's smile grew softer, her eyes reflecting the vastness of the world around them. "We are not alone, Jack. Not in the way we once thought. We are part of something much bigger. And as long as we are connected, we are never truly lost." Jack nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling over him like a blanket. The uncertainty that had plagued him for so long seemed to fade into the background. He had found something here on this strange world, a purpose, a connection that transcended everything he had known. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was exactly where he was meant to be. With Leora, together, they were learning, healing, and perhaps, in time, understanding the greater truth that lay before them. As the moons rose higher in the sky, Jack took a deep breath, feeling the pulse between them as it grew stronger, not just in the physical sense, but in a way that reached beyond the confines of their bodies. It was a bond that went deeper than anything he had ever felt before. And in that moment, he realized that the healing he had begun was not just of his wounds, but of his very soul. As Jack and Leora continued their quiet days together on the alien planet, their bond grew deeper, though neither of them spoke much of it. They didn't need words to understand each other anymore. Jack had always been someone who relied on logic, who kept his emotions hidden behind walls of duty, but here, on this strange, beautiful world, he felt something different. With Leora, it wasn't just about survival. It was about healing, about connecting in ways he hadn't imagined. It was as if the pulse between them was a bridge, slowly mending the fractures in both their hearts. One morning, as the sun rose over the alien landscape, casting a warm golden glow over the forest, Jack stood by the edge of a small stream. The sound of the water flowing gently over rocks was calming, almost hypnotic. Leora joined him soon after, her presence as steady and reassuring as ever. She was more than just a guide or a healer now. She had become something more, something Jack could not yet define. "You seem distant today," Leora said, her voice soft, but there was an edge of concern in it. Jack turned to look at her, his gaze lingering on her delicate features. "I'm just thinking," he replied. "About everything, I guess." Leora nodded, understanding without needing to ask further. She had seen the way Jack had struggled with his past, how he had carried the weight of wars fought, of lives lost, for so long. He had buried it deep inside, not allowing anyone, not even himself, to see the scars. But Leora had seen them. She had felt them in the pulse between them, felt the pain he had hidden away. "You don't have to carry it all alone, Jack," she said quietly. "I know you think you do, but you don't." Jack looked down at the water, his thoughts swirling like the stream before him. "I'm not sure how to let go," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's all I've ever known." Leora stepped closer, her presence as grounding as the earth beneath their feet. She reached out and placed her hand gently on his arm, a simple gesture, yet it conveyed everything he needed to hear. "It's okay to let go," she said softly. "You don't have to be strong all the time. It's okay to feel, Jack. It's okay to heal." Her words were like a gentle wind, breaking down the walls he had built over the years. Slowly, tentatively, Jack allowed himself to feel the weight of his past, the guilt, the pain, the loss. It didn't vanish in an instant, but it began to lift. For the first time, he didn't feel like he had to hold everything together on his own. He could feel Leora's presence beside him, her warmth, her understanding, and it was enough. It was more than enough. "Thank you," Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. He had never known how to say it before, never known how to express the gratitude that had been swelling in his chest. But now, with Leora, it came naturally. She smiled softly, the kind of smile that spoke of understanding, of acceptance. "You don't have to thank me, Jack," she replied. "You are not broken. You are healing, and that is enough." For a moment, they stood together by the stream, the world around them quiet and peaceful. Jack knew that the path ahead wouldn't always be easy. There would be times when the past threatened to overwhelm him again, times when he would feel lost. But with Leora by his side, he didn't feel so alone. He had someone to share the journey with, someone who understood him in a way no one else ever had. And for the first time in a long time, Jack allowed himself to believe that, maybe, just maybe, he could heal. The pulse between them was still there, steady and strong, a reminder that they were connected in ways deeper than they could understand. And in that connection, Jack found a new sense of purpose, a new sense of peace. He wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time in years, he felt ready to face it, not with fear, but with hope. As time passed on the alien world, Jack began to find a sense of peace that he had never imagined possible. The days with Leora had blurred together into a quiet, steady rhythm, one that was filled with understanding, healing, and a growing connection between them. He had come to know her in ways that transcended mere words. They spoke less now, but there was a deeper understanding that didn't need to be voiced. One afternoon, while the two of them sat by a small fire near the edge of the forest, Jack felt something shift. The air was thick with the scent of the alien plants around them, and the stars above began to emerge as the sky darkened. Jack watched Leora as she sat across from him, her gaze distant, yet still soft. For a moment, he could tell that something was on her mind. "Leora," he began, breaking the comfortable silence. "You've been quiet lately. Is everything all right?" Leora looked at him, her bright eyes reflecting the stars. She seemed to hesitate for just a moment before responding. "It's just that sometimes I wonder if I have done enough," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack frowned, confused. "Done? Enough? Leora, you've done more for me than anyone ever could. You've helped me heal. You've helped me understand myself in ways I never thought possible." Leora shook her head slightly, a faint smile playing on her lips, but there was a sadness in her eyes that Jack hadn't seen before. "It's not just about you, Jack," she said softly. "It's about me too. I've spent my whole life searching for answers, for ways to heal others. But sometimes, I wonder if I'm really ready to face my own truth. Jack felt a stir in his chest at her words. He understood the weight of what she was saying. He had been there before. The feeling of constantly searching for something outside himself, yet never really looking inward. You're not alone in this, Leora, Jack said gently. You've helped me, and I know you can help yourself too. You've already come so far. Leora's eyes met his, and for the first time, she seemed to truly see him. She didn't look at him as a patient or a student, but as someone who understood. You're right, she said, her voice steadier now. I've spent so long focused on others that I forgot to look at myself. But maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop searching and start living. The fire crackled softly between them, the flames dancing as the night deepened around them. Jack felt a warmth in his chest, not just from the fire, but from the connection they had built. It was more than just healing, it was a new beginning. They weren't fixed yet. There was still so much to learn, so much to understand. But for the first time, Jack felt like they were on the right path. Maybe we don't need to have all the answers right now, Jack said, his voice calm. Maybe the journey itself is enough. Maybe, for once, we can just be here. Leora smiled, the soft light of the fire reflecting in her eyes. Yes, she agreed. For the first time, I think I'm ready to just be here with you. They sat in silence for a while, the quiet of the night wrapping around them like a comforting blanket. Jack didn't know what the future would hold, whether they would stay on this planet or move on to somewhere new. But in that moment, it didn't matter. What mattered was that they were together, facing whatever came next with a sense of peace, and perhaps even hope. And that was enough. As the days continued to unfold, Jack and Leora found themselves in a peaceful coexistence, each day a subtle exploration of both the alien world and their own inner landscapes. The connection between them, the pulse that had once been a mystery, had now become a steady presence in their lives. It was no longer just a physical sensation. It was a bond, an understanding that transcended the boundaries of their worlds. They were learning, growing, and healing together. One evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of purple, the air cool and still, Jack found himself walking beside Leora through the forest. The soft rustle of leaves was the only sound in the quiet night. The stars above glowed faintly, and for a moment, Jack felt a sense of calm that he had never known before. He had always been a man of action, of purpose, but now, standing in the stillness of the alien world, he realized that for the first time, he was simply being. Leora, Jack said, his voice carrying the weight of unspoken thoughts. Do you ever wonder if we were meant to meet? I mean, this whole thing, our connection, it feels like it's part of something bigger, something I can't quite explain. Leora stopped walking, turning to face him, her eyes soft but knowing. I do, she replied gently. I've always believed that everything happens for a reason, that the universe has a way of guiding us, even when we don't understand it. And perhaps, Jack, this bond between us is part of that guidance. Jack looked at her, his thoughts swirling. He had been a soldier, a survivor, and yet, in the quiet of the forest, with Leora beside him, he felt something he had never felt before, a sense of peace. It was as though all the battles, the losses, and the pain of his past were finally starting to fade, replaced by something more meaningful. I never thought I'd find peace, Jack said quietly, almost to himself. I've spent my whole life running from it, hiding from it. But now, I feel like I'm beginning to understand what it means to actually live. Leora's gaze softened, and she took a step closer to him, the pulse between them still steady, like a silent rhythm that held them together. Peace is not something we find outside of ourselves, she said, her voice filled with wisdom. It is something we cultivate within. It comes from acceptance, from understanding, and from letting go of the things that hold us back. Jack nodded, feeling the truth of her words settle deep within him. He had spent so many years clinging to his pain, his fears, but now, with Leora, he was beginning to let go. It wasn't easy. It never was. But for the first time in a long time, he felt the weight of his past start to lift, as though it were no longer something that defined him. It was a part of him, but it didn't have to control him. I think I'm starting to understand that, Jack said softly. But I still have so much to learn. Leora smiled, the gentle warmth in her eyes telling him that she understood. We all have so much to learn, Jack. But we don't have to do it alone. We are here, together, and that is enough. For a moment, they stood in silence, the quiet of the alien world surrounding them. Jack felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the peace he was beginning to find, but for Leora, for the connection they shared, for the healing that had taken place between them. He knew there would still be challenges ahead, still moments of doubt and uncertainty, but for the first time, he felt ready to face them. Together, they would continue to heal, to grow, and to discover whatever came next. And in that moment, Jack realized that the journey they were on, this journey of healing, of connection, and of self-discovery, was the most important one he had ever taken.